Mhm. Um, could you all come a little bit more, not all, actually, the one in the back, could you be kind enough to come a little bit more forward to the seats more in front? Also those just coming in now, just to ensure that in the session we have maybe a little bit less shuffling. We would highly appreciate if you could just condense it here at the front a bit more. I know it's tough once you sit down and it's after lunch, but still. And I will... Good. So let's start. Welcome to this afternoon session on supporting growth of circular SMEs. I hope all of you had a good lunch, and I'm sure we will be able today to give you actually some really interesting insights. We have excellent speakers here. I will introduce them in a moment to you, and we will talk about the keys for growth, for a circular economy for SMEs, and overcoming the scale-up challenges. So in the beginning, I would like to frame maybe the issues a little bit. Why do we talk here of SMEs in the context of supporting growth? And you will excuse me, my name is Stefan Sickers, and I'm coming from the UN Industrial Development Organization. And we are, of course, always thinking in developing countries. And I just wanted to give you, as an introduction, an example of a company that we are working in. It's African Cables, actually, is the name of the company. You see here a photo. And it is an SME, 200 people when we started the project, give or take. And these SMEs, they are accounting for 60% of the GDP, 70% of employment in the MENA region. Actually, globally, the figures vary a bit, but are approximately at the same level. So they are not only economically an important driver, they are creating jobs. And this is nowadays, of course, a similarly important criteria, and we believe for circular economy in particular. So these SMEs represent actually somewhere between 80 and 90% of all formal sector enterprises. And what happened here? The enterprise was actually, African Cable was producing cables, as you can see here, but also car batteries. For a number of years, they were founded in 1992. And they found they are supplying more and more local manufacturers. There are plants of manufacturers in Morocco, where African Cable in Casablanca is situated. They are supplying them with car batteries. And they realized more and more that working with the car batteries, there's an issue with the materials they're using. They might as well use as a base material used car batteries and recycle them. Very logical thing if you build car batteries in the first place. So they set up a recycling operation, collecting used car batteries and reworking them, and then they're being sold to car manufacturers to be used in new cars. So this is something that they undertook in this project. They have increased their employment by around 30 people, 15%, in that time that we were working there when they were taking on the recycling. The trick is here we have a recycling where a expert company in a certain field, batteries, learned the business opportunities in using used materials and use them to produce new quality car batteries that are up to the specification of car manufacturers and can fulfill the needs in new cars. I just avoid the brands. So, but there are a number of typical elements here. You have a high level of expertise. You have the opportunity to actually come back to something which is as good as buying a new product. You have additional employment, and you have additional turnover. So this is, I think, what we overall will look at in our session today, and the issues that you will embark at. And we have a number of excellent speakers, but before we enter into that, I would like to ask Carmen, actually, to come up here. Just a moment, let me just introduce you. Carmen, we met yesterday actually at a lunch. Didn't know that we were together in the session today, but had a very, very nice lunch opportunity. And Carmen Ene runs a private company here in Finland, but comes originally from Romania. In Romania, she actually opened one of the first IT companies, which turned then out to be the most important or most successful one in Romania, was bought by IBM. Then she had a successful career in IBM and is now actually heading the company 3-Step IT. 3-Step IT are experts in IT asset management business, and their solutions help customers to manage IT devices and, in particular, enable the circular economy, helping clients acquire, use, and then recycle IT devices. And I would like to invite you, Carmen, to explain to us and open with the keynote to give us some more insight on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I have to say that I feel extremely honored and privileged for the invitation to be here today and share with you the story of our business. And for those of you that have been participated earlier in a panel where the CEO of Martella has been presented, this is really our office. This is our headquarters, and we have Martella furniture, the inspiration furniture. And yes, I am one of the privileged people that say, every week, thanks God, is Monday to go and work in such an inspirational place. I also dressed today into a typical Finnish design Marimekko cloud. There are no clouds today, but they may come in my story as I go further. 3-Step IT. Let me tell you very briefly what we do. 3-Step, and we think everything in three. So, like it was said already, we do handle the acquisition, the asset management, and the renewal of IT assets. And we explain this in 3 steps. The first step relates to how do you acquire and how do you fund what you have to acquire. And these are the kind of things we answer for the customers. How do you acquire your assets? Where do you buy them from? Where do you find the funds? Do they fit in your budget? Who is giving you the money? So we solve all these kind of things and we arrange them for the customers. Step number 2 relates to management, accounting, tracking, and registering the assets. And here we answer different other questions like, where are the assets? Are they in use? Do they have the right software on them? We even have a kind of a health check. Is your computer working the way it's supposed to do? We all know how annoying it is to have some blue screens from time to time. You have to call someone in India to tell you what you have to do. We have a different solution to that. We have a health check verification with an element of analytics that tells you before when your computer is going to crash. And we do all that to make sure that the assets are used in the most efficient way during the lifetime of the assets. And last but not the least, replacement. And here we speak about data security, about a renew cycle, about replacement. And this is the question, and actually this is how our business initiated. What do you do with all the assets when you don't need them anymore? I mean, tell me how many mobile phones you have at home? A lot? Some? 4 in a box? How many laptops that you don't use? 5, right? How many? Well, how many cables, by the way? Because I have three boxes full of cables because I keep them, I store them. I keep thinking, oh, maybe I'm going to use them someday, right? Well, that's not an invitation for you to send all your old cables to us, right? Because we solve some problems, not all the problems, but anyway. So, but what we do is we take the old equipment back. We securely erase the data, and that's very important, as you may know, according to last legislations. And then we resolve how do we install new new ones. Now, this is again a photo from one of our plants. This year we will be 20 years. We celebrate together with 100 years of Finland. And I have to say that these years all originated through the wish of our owners to invest for a long term, not for a short term. So we are in the run to create a sustainable business. And here is where you have to balance between profit, between society, and between people, and find the economic model that really works. We did find it because today, just to give you an idea, we are in 10 countries. We are refurbished. We have plants in all the Nordic countries, in the UK and in Malaysia, our own plants where we refurbish the equipment. In 2016, we refurbished 360,000 devices. Equipment is data erased, it's cleaned up, it's tested before it's sold. But there is one figure, the only one figure I would like you to remember. We resell 98% of the equipment that comes back. Not recycle, resell. So we give equipment a second life. And I think that it's a very important piece that I would like to stress out during the conversation, because most of the time people mistake circular economy with waste management. I think it's a little bit more than that. And I think it speaks a lot about giving things a second life. Now, I give you two examples of solutions that we have. One in Norway, 2 contracts in Norway, one with municipalities and schools. 2 contracts, frame agreements, one for 4 years, one for 6 years. We renew all the equipment every 2 years. And then we have one contract. We have a partner that is delivering the equipment, does the installation. We do the financing, the asset management, of course, the renewal. And then we have also some services around, like Apple services or some apps that manage the systems. Another, and we call these device as a service because we have one contract with all these services around. In Finland, we have another exciting example where we move device as a service to a next level, which is learning as a service. And here we have the ambition to deliver one classroom as a service, right? So we have basically a partnership with some people that you may think it makes sense, because we partner with Microsoft, with Lenovo to deliver the systems. Then we have a software partner and cloud provider, Ilona from Finland, and they provide the cloud services for the classroom. And all this, and even we have now a furniture partner that would provide the furniture especially for the classrooms. And everything is under the umbrella of learning specification done by an eminent professor here in Finland in pedagogy. So that's another thing. Couple of data points that I hope you can use afterwards in your, okay, I'm getting too over time. Couple of data points that I would like you to consider for the questions. So the first one, if you Google it, or like my nephew is telling me, search it up, circular economy, this is how you see on Google, right? Now, it seems impressive. I still believe it's a notion that is not known yet, but it's growing. Interest is growing. If you compare it with sustainability, then you can see how small we know about circular economy. Sustainability is already a term that is more known than the rest. Now, if you compare it, first I wanted to take Beyoncé, but then you wouldn't have seen the line. So I decided I take profit, but you immediately see that profit is more known, more Googled, more searched up than sustainability, and circular economy, you don't see it anymore. So I think there's a lot of education, a lot of new things. We talk about circular economy, but very few people really know and understand what it is. One case from us, and then I finish. We made the customer survey with our customers, and we asked them, what is the reason you're buying, right? And there are many reasons: cash, conserve cash, asset management, protection, all kinds of things. If you look at sustainable reuse, only a tiny 3% of this big pot consider that. So it's not definitely a condition or something that you can drive with. And I finish here with a couple of questions that I hope you will set. This is a circular economy company that needs clients, consumer and companies. And there are all kinds of questions that will be raised here and you will address eventually in the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carmen. And before going to the panel, I just wanted to encourage you to use this app here. If questions are coming up during the presentations that we are hearing during the interventions, please take to the app. In the meantime, you all know it. You know that there's a question area or a question tab. And please use it, and we will try to answer it, but that should not stop you from raising your hand afterwards in the discussion to actually have the possibility to ask the question directly and maybe a little bit better than you can do with a few lines here. Good. So I would like to introduce now our panel that we have, our esteemed panel, and let me start with Funto. Oh, perfect. So Funto Boroffice is in the business, actually, of waste collection and recycling. She is the founder and CEO of Chanya Dati Limited in Nigeria, in Abidjan. And this is a social enterprise, 2 years old, focusing on unemployed women and youth, and is actually collecting from landfills different materials and separates them cleanly and then sells them. Please come to the podium, or yes, give a hearty applause. The next one I would like to introduce is Didier. Didier Gambier is from the European Commission. He has devoted his career to energy research conducted relating to large infrastructures. He's head of department of the Commission's Executive Agency for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, which is one of the reasons, but not the only one, why he has found his way here today, and supervises a lot of different programs and activities of the Commission that I will just jump over, including Horizon 2020, actually. We have this Horizon 2020, for example, is focusing on the area of environment, raw materials, eco-innovation, and circular economy, as well as climate change and energy efficiency. Didier is a physicist by training and has also managed a number of international programs, including the civil conversion of military scientists of the former USSR, which must have been very interesting. Didier, please, if you would be kind enough. Third in line is Jennifer Gerhold. She helps business to become a part of the circular economy, and she does so in her function as the Senior Director of the US Chamber of Commerce Foundation Corporate Citizenship Center. That's a very specific terminology for the center, and she was a Senior Manager of Conservation International's Business and Sustainability Council, and a Program Officer of the World Wildlife Foundation, the Global Forest and Trade Network in North America program. Jennifer also served as a member of the Board of Directors of the US Water Alliance, and her Chamber of Commerce Foundation Corporate Citizenship Center leads programs, events, research, and relationship with key NGOs and governments to help companies advance positive social, environmental, and economic impact of business. Thank you, Jennifer. If you and last, definitely not least, Ian Gallant, the Chief Executive of Well, there he is. Ian Gallant is the Chief Executive of Zero Waste Scotland. Zero Waste Scotland works to deliver the Scottish Government's circular economy strategy, and they are at the forefront of efforts to create a resource-efficient circular economy in Scotland. He is the Chief Executive Officer and has worked previously with initiating recycling systems in the public and in third sectors, and leading the Community Recycling Network Scotland. And he was also named the most influential person in the UK waste and resource efficiency sector by the Resource magazine in 2014. Ian, if you would like to come up. So I would like now to pass on the baton, which is in this case actually a pointer, and would like to ask you to maybe start your presentation. Please, Funto, if you could be kind enough to give us a short show at the message you want to give us, and then afterwards, after going through all four, you have the opportunity, and we all will enter into a lively discussions about SMEs. Funto,
thank you so
floor
much,
is yours.
Stefan. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say thank you to the organizers of this awesome forum for just giving me the platform to be able to share our story. As was mentioned earlier on, I can only speak for my experience in Nigeria. There are 54 countries in Africa, and sometimes, people outside of Africa think that Africa is just one country. There are 54 distinct countries in Africa, so I can only speak to my experience, and even that within Abuja. So as Stefan mentioned, I run a waste collection and recycling company that is based in Abuja, Nigeria, and we started in 2015. And the reason why we started that, and the reason why I have this page that says Think Opportunity, is because it rose out of the challenges and the issues that I saw. Spent 18 years in the US, moved back to Nigeria, saw that there were a lot of people that didn't have jobs, so that we had an environmental problem in terms of how we got rid of our waste and waste management. So a lot of people were, again, utilizing combustion method, or just every other street corner had piles and piles of waste. And so those were the two things that came together for me that decided, or set me on the path where I decided that I was going to go into this business. We're a social enterprise, like I said, so we really, really care about making sure that we empower unemployed youth as well as women that don't have jobs. But like I said, these were challenges that I saw coming back from the US and saying that there's an opportunity here. And so one of the key messages that I just want to pass on to everybody for those who see challenges is, once you see a challenge, if you can find a solution for it, it builds up into opportunity. And that for us is the biggest thing. For me, I always tell people Nigeria is a country of 175 million people. 51% of that is under the age of 18. We, right now, by the year 2030, are going to be 390 million people. And so I threw out some of those stats to you because, again, I say that we have an opportunity here. For anybody who is thinking about going into Africa, thinking about maybe doing business in Africa, there are challenges for sure, but those challenges, again, are the ones that birth opportunity. For us right now, we're at the very rudimentary stage of what we want to do. But in terms of investment and ROI, for us in just Abuja, right, we're 2.1 million people. Right now, there's a $300 million opportunity for those who are brave enough to come into the game. There's opportunity for innovation, to invest in R&D. We need it. There's another statistic that I saw that said we're probably between 20 to 25 years behind developed countries in terms of just research and development, and in terms of just the know-how, the knowledge base. Thousands of green jobs can be created. One of the things that I've seen that always comes into conversation, right, is this whole influx of immigrants, right, moving from Africa, places like Africa, into Europe, and which has again fed into some of the distrust and what's the right word that I'm thinking of? Everything with Brexit and even in the US, right? I would say to you today that if people in places like Africa had jobs, nobody would want to go to Europe because they would want to stay with their families, right? And so that's why I'm saying that if we can, help in creating more jobs, green jobs, which is a wave of the future, I think, immigration would be one of the things that would be curtailed. Again, one of the biggest things that we've had to do is sensitization and awareness. One of the things that I've come across in my 2 years of doing this is that when people from developed countries come to places like Nigeria and they start throwing terms like, again, circular economy and recycling, and I always tell people that it's such an elitist those are elitist terminologies, right? Because the regular person on the street who we work with, who's just trying to stay alive and to feed, doesn't really care about those terms, right? And so sensitization and awareness has to happen, and that is an opportunity. Again, we're big on partnerships with public and private sectors. We're always looking for people to partner with. The opportunities are limitless. Again, like I said, in Abuja, 2.1 million people in just the metro area. We're not even talking about the environs. If you included that, that would be like 3.4 million people. Abuja in itself is growing by 135% year over year because it's the federal capital territory. 2.5 tons of waste generated daily. And only maybe 20% of that is collected. So again, the opportunities are limitless. Again, unemployment rate is in the high 20s. This is the reason why we're doing what we're doing. This is my story, and again, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to share this. And I'm hoping that even as we're talking about ways to support growing SMEs, that there are people who are brave enough to just say, they'll sign up with us and say we want to support you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and I would like to ask Didier now to come. You passed on the pointer. Excellent.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I'm coming from the European Commission, so I'm one of those bad guys that are doing all those regulations and directive and all those type of things, and you may think that we are hampering your activity. Well, I would like to venture with you that we are doing exactly the opposite of this. People may not know it, may not want to recognize it, but if you look at the impact of the Water Directive, of the Air Directive, of the Energy Efficiency Directive, all those sort of things are paving the way for developing the circular economy we're talking about today. It is not against it, it is in favor of it. So I would like to venture something that instead of circular economy being a buzzword that is going to be in fashion today and tomorrow is going to be over, I would like to venture with you that this is an utopia and that we are very lucky because of the general environment that exists today with the Paris signature, even though the US is going to take 4 years to recover from Donald Trump, that we are going to move forward, we are going to implement all this, and this is going to change our societies. And it's going to change our societies in a fundamental way. I think we should not underestimate. We listened yesterday to what Janusz Potocznik, my former commissioner, was saying. The macroeconomic is doom. We cannot face, we're going to run into all type of walls and this and that. All right, this is good and fine, and then what do we do? So what do we do is we have to build up on the principles, on the belief, on the rational, on the standards, on the norms that we have already with us. And we need to empower the people with passion to engage into these activities. You are the one with the passion, you are the one with the ideas, and you need customers. So you need to go in the field and find the customers, because whatever we will want to do for you through the various programs that I will detail in a little minute, nothing will replace the hard work, which is to find what problem do you solve for your customer. You need to go in the street and find that out. In the meantime, we will support you as much as we can by implementing programs. Here I'm responsible for research and development programs that deals with circular economy. Just to mention something, we're going to invest 650 million from the Horizon 2020 in circular economy. So it's not exactly nothing. And we are also responsible for the LIFE program, where we have already invested 100 million since 2014 into circular economy activities. We have a lot that comes from FP7. We have the European Enterprise Network to help you to find the customers and the client that you need. We also have things that expose you towards financing sectors. We have the SME instrument that allows you to go to demonstrate your technologies and maybe to address the financing sectors, etc., etc., etc. One thing that we don't have, unfortunately, is that every time you go through this step, you need to compete. We cannot graduate you from an Horizon 2020 program into a LIFE program, and from a LIFE program to an SME instrument, from the SME instrument to Innofin, from Innofin to EIB, and so on, so on, so forth, so that at the end you are so rich that you don't know what to do with your money except to reinvest it in some other fields. Okay, but the reality is that we've covered more or less all the fields, and we have all the instrument that is in front of us to try to help this. And the utopia that I have in mind, trying to push a little bit, is that circular economy, whatever the definition is, and it's not yet complete. The people are studying the tiger to find out if it has colors this, if this and that. What we are trying to say here is that ride the tiger, go forward. Don't stop and don't wait for the definition to be settled down, that everybody, all the academia and things like that will have agreed to it. All the economical model that will support this, go for it. Go for it, demonstrate your business proposal. Make sure you get the customers that are willing to do that. Why? Because I and my colleagues, we believe that circular economy is happening under our eyes, that you are carrying on the circular economy, and that you are making it into a reality. So it will, in our views, have enormous impact on the way we address the society. We are very much along the line that whatever can be sold as a service is a winner for the future. What is to be sold just as an asset is a loser. So why do we say that? Simply because we consider that maintaining the raw materials with the owners, and a little bit like what you're doing, just to maintain the cycle and be responsible for the material from day one to the end, and even to the end of life, is the way to optimize the use of the material. And therefore, it could make us pay not for the end of life, but just to participate and to exploit this material all along the cycle. It goes for computers, but it goes for garment, but it goes also for cars in the future, maybe for furniture. I would have loved yesterday to ask Mr. IKEA, would you like to take what I have in my garage that is IKEA product and I don't know what to do about it? I'm sure his answer would have been, no. Okay, so maybe there is progress to be made there. It may be also true for properties. And this is the ultimate, and I would like to say that I'm myself very puzzled about properties. Should I be the manager of a property that basically a bank owns, and then when I leave, the bank finds another manager of that property, or should I be the owner of that property? If one day I'm convinced that I can be just the manager of a property, I think circular economy has won. Okay? So that's some of the things. So, and the way to do that, of course, is for us, innovation, innovation, innovation. Innovation in all fields. Connection between technologies and social behaviors and this and that, absolutely everything. Social sciences everywhere today, because we're facing probably the next revolution, maybe not industrial, but societal at least, and we will need all the best ideas so that we can, in the end, create the job, the activities that our children and grandchildren and people will need to continue to strive ahead. So in a nutshell, just a different message from the Commission. We are not there to stop you. We're here to accompany you to the best of our abilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was already a great example about the bandwidth that we have on our panel today. You know, we had the two hands-down entrepreneurs who went out and just did things. And now we have the Commission who thinks about the bigger picture, about support, also about the fact that circular economy does not mean circular administration or circular support. And now we are actually hearing a voice from the business community rather than a single business. And I would like to invite Jennifer to give us her viewpoints while I stumble over my drum, to give us her viewpoints over circular economies and SMEs. Please, Jennifer.
Great. Thank you, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks to Citra and the additional conference partners for the opportunity to be here with you for the World Circular Economy Summit. As you can tell from my accent, I am from the United States, so I am very pleased to bring the perspective of how companies, and in particular SMEs, in the US are looking at and adopting the circular economy. Before I go into these key messages, I just wanted to share with you the current landscape of SMEs in the US, for those of you that are not as familiar, and I just kind of jotted down some statistics. So small and medium-sized businesses in the US are actually the economic engine of what drives the economy in the States. Half of the people who work in the US own or work for a small or medium-sized business. 28 million small businesses in the US account for 54% of all US sales and provide 55% of all jobs and 66% of all new net jobs since the 1970s. So that's pretty impressive and really just shows you, I think, the scale and the importance of small and medium-sized businesses in the US. The 600,000 plus franchise small businesses in the US account for 40% of all retail stores and provide jobs for more than 8 million people. And in the US, there are an increasing number of entrepreneurs, innovators, and small and medium-sized businesses that are looking at the circular economy approach. And I'm happy to talk about some of those examples perhaps in the discussion, including companies like Ecovative, Stuffster, Optoro, and TerraCycle, to name a few. So I'd love to share some of those examples with you. So why are these companies looking at the circular economy? Well, it's for all of the reasons that we've been talking about over the past day and a half, right? The increase in population growth, global climate change, urbanization, also the economic opportunity of 4.5 trillion, according to Accenture forecast. So there's both a megatrends rationale and a strong economic case for this. But there are a number of challenges for SMEs that are looking to adopt the circular economy approach, and arguably for large multinational enterprises. One of which is that our systems of commerce in the US and arguably globally still rely on this linear take, make, dispose model. So we're trying to move to a circular economy, but the linear economy still very much permeates the economy. So that is an incredible challenge, but I think opportunity. Also in the US, and we even heard from some of our panelists already just about what the circular economy is. We come to conferences like this and we're like, everybody gets it. Hard work is done, but actually most people have no idea what the circular economy is, what does it mean, what is it all about. So I think that particularly in the US, there's tremendous opportunity to educate not just businesses, but other stakeholders about what it is, what it isn't, that it's not just about recycling or end of pipe, which I think we tend to think about in the US when we talk about the circular economy. I think that we run the risk of not really being able to fully take advantage of the circular opportunity if we just look at it through recycling and end of pipe. So there's, I think, tremendous education that we can still do in the US and globally about this opportunity. But that businesses are increasingly aware of what this concept is, and they're trying to integrate it into their mainstream business strategy. So I think that we're going to continue to see that increase over the coming years. I would also say that for SMEs, just this need for partnerships. So SMEs often struggle attracting partners to mainstream their business model and their product and service offerings. They often don't have the capabilities to take their idea or their product or their innovation to scale. And collaborating with perhaps larger businesses can be challenging, right? Because there's an inherent risk in partnering with an SME that perhaps doesn't yet have a proven or scalable model or approach yet. So just kind of those needs for partnerships is really critical for SMEs. I would also say there are limited financial resources for SMEs in the U.S. We don't have groups yet, like Circularity Capital, for example, in the U.K. that really focuses on financing SMEs. So for those investors in the room, I think there's tremendous opportunity to invest in really innovative and entrepreneurial small and medium-sized businesses in the U.S. So hopefully that will increase in the future. I would also say there's also lack of fragmented or just lack of sensible policy frameworks for enabling a more circular economy for SMEs and large multinational companies in the U.S. I think that can be really helpful in spurring competitiveness and innovation, but the good news is that businesses in the U.S. aren't waiting for regulators to catch up. There have been some movement in the U.S., so under President Obama, the EPA championed circular economy and sustainable materials management, really looking at a full life cycle approach. And the Department of Energy, also under President Obama, launched the remanufacturing or remade hubs that helps to spur competitiveness and manufacturing jobs in the U.S. So a one-to-one matching 70 million to 70 million to really try to drive remanufacturing and closed loop in the manufacturing sector. So finally, just to kind of move into what I see are the opportunities for both public and private sector organizations to support circular SMEs in the U.S., one of which is developing resources like case studies, showcasing how businesses can do this. And we provide case studies through our organization, looking at toolkits, so practical resources that help companies both small and large figure out how they can take advantage of circular opportunities. And we've developed such a toolkit in partnership with the Sustainability Consortium and the Retail Industry Leaders Association in the States. Pilot projects, and we've heard that a lot over the past couple of days, providing frameworks and replicable and scalable models, testing how this can be done in a collaborative environment. Other opportunities would be access to capital, which I've already mentioned, establishing sensible policy frameworks. And one that we've started touching on in this conference is looking at a common set of circularity metrics, which is really important. So we start down this path and we're testing circular ideas and we're shifting our business models, but how do we know that we are successful and that we are impactful? A lot of organizations in the US, and I think globally, default to kind of standard sustainability KPIs because we don't really have a kind of common circularity framework, although there has been some work by organizations to try to crack that now. But this is going to be really key for organizations, including SMEs, that are looking at how do I know that I'm making progress and being able to communicate that internally and externally. And then the final thing I'll mention and then close is with regards to the Paris Agreement. And I know that this has been coming up for the past couple of days, and because I am from the U.S., I feel like it would be a missed opportunity for me to not acknowledge that here. And what I will say is that I have been extremely encouraged by businesses, cities, and states in the U.S. that remain committed to the Paris Agreement. Why? Because they see it as a competitive advantage, and there's also a $13.5 trillion investment opportunity. So there has been the establishment of the Climate Alliance. The governors of New York, California, Washington, Massachusetts, and there might be others since I checked the news a couple of days ago, that have signed on to this alliance to continue to implement the Paris Agreement. There's also been, I think, around 90 mayors across the U.S. that are committed to implementing the Paris Agreement. More than 1,000 businesses, small and large, have reaffirmed their support for the Paris Agreement. So in my personal opinion, I believe that in the absence of federal leadership, we are going to continue to see progress moving towards the low-carbon economy and thus supporting a more circular economy. So with that, I thank you, and I will conclude.
Thanks. And thanks so much, Jennifer, for giving us A, the insight of the Chamber of Commerce, essentially, and B, some more viewpoints on something that a lot of us have on our mind, of course. Highly appreciated, and thanks for taking the plunge. Now we come to Ian. And Ian, you are in control, actually, of this. Exactly, and here you go.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stefan, and to Citra for the kind invitation. Absolutely delighted to be here, to an opportunity to share what's been happening in Scotland. So, developing more circular SMEs is really at the heart of the strategy that Stefan mentioned earlier, the Scottish Government strategy, which was launched last year by the Scottish Government, which set out their ambitions in terms of the circular economy, and set also out some key actions that they would like to see taking place to support the acceleration of the circular economy in Scotland. And I'm going to talk about some of those briefly here. That strategy actually came on the back of a very comprehensive evidence gathering exercise to really understand what the circular economy would mean for Scotland. So taking the kind of the big numbers that have been bandied around by people like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation at a global level, we really tried to drill down into those opportunities for Scotland and looking at our key sectors, our food and drink industry, our construction industry, our energy sector, as well as our manufacturing sector, and really tried to pull out those opportunities. And that really reinforced that SMEs, or creating a more circular SME structure in Scotland, was at the heart of delivering those ambitions. So what's happened since then? So ourselves at Zero Waste Scotland have actually developed a programme to accelerate the circular economy. It's an €80 million programme over the next couple of years, part funded by European structural funds. So it's quite a considerable, comprehensive attempt to really make things happen in Scotland. At the heart of that, there is a focus on SMEs. So we have a business network. We brought all of the industry first movers, I guess, together, who are very interested in this. We've brought them together with academics. We've brought them together with other agency partners, enterprise agencies, environmental agencies, and a number of other public agencies to really understand how we can drive that forward, as well as just allowing businesses who are already taking the first steps to the circular economy to share their experiences and receive some sort of degree of mentor or peer-to-peer support. We then have a service. We've developed a service, a one-to-one support for businesses who are on that journey to look at the feasibility of their new business model or whatever technology they're thinking about. It's a bespoke service that we've set up. We've piloted it for a number of years, a couple of years before, and worked with about 25 businesses. So we're now rolling that out, and we have about over 100 businesses interested in joining that service. I could talk a lot about some of the businesses, but I would recommend you go to our stand if you haven't gone already. Out in the main hall, we're showcasing some of the businesses we've already been working with, one of which has made this kilt that I'm wearing standing in, a Diggory Brown. So this kilt is made from waste wool, which previously was just sent to landfill once the spinning process had taken place. So we worked with this company to actually take the waste from the floor and create another fashion item, which is a kilt. And obviously, I've rented this to come with you today. So again, the circular business model there is not about selling this item. They retain ownership because of the quite considerable effort that they've put into this very precious garment. We also have an investment fund, over €21 million as well as part of this. So the whole idea is we're bringing interested businesses through a pipeline of support to look at their ambitions, look at where they would like to go in terms of their business, and then we can provide some direct investment support, which is trying to accommodate some of the issues that SMEs have around securing investment, and that is something that's up and running at this moment in time. Also, we've developed a cities approach as well as working through the 4 sectors that I mentioned. We have, I think people might have heard a bit about what happened in Amsterdam yesterday in the plenary. We're doing similar things with the cities in Scotland, particularly Glasgow. So again, that's working through the Chambers of Commerce actually in Glasgow as a facilitator, bringing different sectors together. Again, they're kind of bringing people into the room who naturally possibly wouldn't have been working with each other to understand how they could network and collaborate on new business opportunities. If I just may, a couple of other things that sit behind that to try and support SMEs is we have a procurement initiative. So we're working, it was raised at the last session I was at about public procurement being a real opportunity to drive a market for circular businesses. So we are working directly with public sector procurement specialists. We've provided training to over 300 of those in the whole idea of the circular economy and the performance economy and how they might start to shape their procurements going forward to act as a driver for more circular businesses in Scotland. We've also been looking at a skills academy, so that's something that's been come from our work, the absence of certain skills, both in the business sector and the public sector, and generally across entrepreneurs around these opportunities. So it's something we've been working with our education colleagues in government, our business skills colleagues in government to develop an actual skills hub to drive that forward. Another thing that's been highlighted is the absence sometimes of time or capacity to drive R&D. So we're very much working with some of the universities in Scotland. We established the Centre for Remanufacturing in Scotland with Strathclyde University to really act as an interface with academics and manufacturing companies who wanted to explore opportunities around remanufacturing and create an R&D space, which is something else we're funding. And again, hopefully those companies will be pipeline companies that we'll be able to invest in through our investment fund. So quite a lot is happening, I guess. We're very much, I take that from yourself about riding that tiger. I very much think in Scotland we are riding that tiger, certainly from our government and our own Zero Waste Scotland policy. We're already working with a number of businesses. This is a very exciting space. There's successful businesses now that have gone through our service and are seeing more investment coming along the pipeline. So it's quite an exciting space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. And a special applause for the great garment. Thank you very much. And now you have a much better idea of our team here, and I would like actually to add to that also Carmen sitting here, of course, as a resource person who is also available. No place, but she has ears, she has a microphone, happy to answer your questions. I would suggest that we are framing the next 25 minutes or so into 3 groups of issues, because what I have learned, what we have learned, I think at the moment is, to me at least, there are 3 different complexes. The first is what makes success possible for SMEs in the circular economy. How do SMEs succeed? What are their business models? What are their opportunities? Then the flip side of the coin, next part will be about challenges, like what is particularly challenging. And then out of the challenges, I think we come to the support opportunities that there are for governments, for other organizations. And I think this will hopefully create an overall experience of what we have, where are the chances, and what we can do more to facilitate more development, more growth of SMEs. So if we do that, we start with success. Are there already any questions from the audience? I thought you would be shy actually in the beginning. So that is okay, because we have a number of questions on successes already here. So the question I would like to pose to all of you, and maybe a little bit stronger to Carmen and Funto as the true entrepreneurs in our group, is what do you see as the key success factors? What makes an SME being able to succeed in the circular economy? What's the trick? What you would recommend to people who want to follow you? Please, who?
Sure, I'll go.
Funto, go ahead.
I think based on my experience, I think it's learning to identify a problem and trying to bring solution to that problem. I think for me is the biggest is the biggest crux of why an SME would succeed, because then you have a groundswell of need that means that your demand and supply would be answered. I think the other thing is passion. If you're not passionate about what you do, I think there's going to be so many roadblocks along the way that will force you to give up if you're not, kind of married to what you're trying to do. And then for me, again, I'm passionate about what I do because of the social aspect of it, how we're able to empower lives and make sure that, again, like for me, like I mentioned yesterday, circular economy is survival for a lot of people. When I see that every day and I see lives being touched and people being able to feed themselves and their families, being able to save something to be able to send their children to school, there's no talk of giving up. You keep on because you know that it's not just about you, but about the bigger populace that you're representing.
So Carmen, I mean, you mentioned actually to us in your presentation that hardly any one of your customer is actually driven by circular economy. They have all kinds of reasons. Is that a chance for us? Is there something to learn?
I concur with what you say. So I think when for us to be successful is not only the solution and the product that we sell. I think sustainability is embedded in our DNA as a company. For us specifically, coming from Finland, Finland has an incredible tradition of green. The Finns love their nature, they take care of it, so we live it, basically. And when you live it, the customers are seeing it, and they see your conviction. But to your point on the numbers, when I looked and I made the survey for our customers, it was clear the circular economy was by no means among the first criteria. They think of the input, they think of the cost. They may think of the asset management because it helps them control the assets. They may think of total cost of ownership, but they don't think of the output. From all the customers that we have seen, only a minority thought, what is happening with the equipment after we take it out of our thing. And it's frustrating that the procurement officers don't have as a criteria. Now, I think the regulators, even though I'm so glad to hear that the European Commission is not stopping us, but I think they can do even more. They can help us. Because when regulators do something, and I will give an example, there is now this regulation for data protection, which has been issued and it's going to be enforced in next year in 2018. Suddenly, the interest on data protection, because there are huge fines, it's 4% of your turnover. Suddenly, everyone gives attention of data protection. So regulators can really influence buying patterns, and they can design things in such way that they can encourage SMEs that do circular economy. Absolutely. It's one of the things.
Thank you very much, Carmen. I was maybe since I'm sure the Commission and also, meaning Didier and also Ian, before you set up your programs that both of you have actually for support, what was going through my mind is the Commission is threatening to support the SMEs. So joking. I'm coming from a true free market background, I should say. To the programs, you're looking into opportunities, right? Because you want to help them over barriers, but you must both have developed an understanding for what business opportunities are out there. Where can people actually earn income, make money, make companies grow? Do you see new entrepreneurs coming up or more companies which are anyway working in the economy already, which are moving, like the examples that I provided with African Cable? Where do you see the big chances for circular economy SMEs? Didier, maybe first.
So we have a very large number of SMEs with which we work. Not all of them are engaged in circular economy, but some are engaged in circular economy. I give you one example to show you that we're not against the free market.
I just wanted to poke you.
I know a company in Italy. They received a patent from an Italian US citizen that wanted to give something back to Italy. He gave them the patent to work with graphene. and they develop a graphene blanket that actually sucks oil. So it can be used to clean areas, and they get their first contract with a city in Ploiești, that you probably know very well, which has been overexploited during World War II, and that the underground water is completely polluted. So they get a contract, they solve this. All right. Then, when it is sucked with oil, they don't know what to do with it. They sell it to the people that put it on the in the pavement, and because of graphene, it reduces the amount of wear, and so it's better. It creates economy for people that are driving on those roads, etc., etc. This guy received a phone call from the city, and then he calls me. He said, "Should I go? Because you know, it was public money that financed all this." And the answer we gave him was, not only you go, but you take a plane today. Okay? Because if you can create jobs, if you can create value, if you can develop your business, we are all in favor of it. We don't own the intellectual property. We have no intention to manage the intellectual property. We want the market to exploit the intellectual property. It be background, foreground, sideground, whatever you want. It's for you in the field to find out where you can exploit your discoveries, your innovations, and then to run with it and to try to do the best out of it. So I think this is pretty much free market economy approach.
That is a thank you, Didier, for this excellent example, actually, which really brought together an innovation, a provision, in this case from you, from the Commission, an opportunity that was seen not only by the future entrepreneur, but also by a client, and things happen. And maybe, Ian, you have a different example for us.
Well, the other thing in Scotland, in terms of our programme, we've been running our resource efficiency programme for a number of years, so working with individual businesses on things like heating, lighting, insulation, as well as recycling. So we have a recognised brand again. I guess we have built up some knowledge about how do you influence individual business owners, etc., in terms of taking forward resource efficiency, and a lot of that is about the demonstration of either the cost savings or the financial benefit to them, as well as obviously the social and environmental. But the one is about the actual costing really resonates with them. So a lot of the work that we've done in the circular economy, as I said, was sat behind the government strategy, and the work that we've done was a very comprehensive evidence piece around what those opportunities would look like. And they weren't just £100 million or £200 million. We started to actually look at what, in terms of what we knew, in terms of technology that was available or things that we were learning that were out there already in the global community, what could actually happen in Scotland. So we played those back, not just individual companies, but to people like Chambers of Commerce, who we saw as a good facilitator in terms of getting business leaders together. We talked to industry groups, we talked to our enterprise colleagues as well about the college. So we did a lot of work to try and build up the business case for the circular economy in these key sectors, and that really brought a lot of people to the table who were interested in it. And I think the other key to success to some extent was the work that we've done with those companies like Diggory Brown with this. We spent a lot of time with those companies researching the market. They were enthusiastic, absolutely passionate. Some of these are really interesting designers to work with, but we recognise that enthusiasm and everything will get you so far, but if it's going to be a long-term sustainable business, we really do need to help them research what the market looks like, what the mega trends are, what it would look like as an export potential. And we spent a lot of time with those companies, and I think that's built in a degree of success into not just, it is about their own individual attitude to all of this in terms of their passion and their workforce, but we actually did almost force them through a kind of programme to ensure that they were thinking, they were looking beyond their passion and understanding what the market. One of the challenges, though, I think, if I lead on to that, is about this existing companies and startups, because for us that is a challenge, because as I've said, we have a recognised brand going into existing companies who have got a building, who have got a workforce, who have got a lighting, or they've got insulation issues or whatever, and we can go in, but we don't really have an interface with startups. I don't have an email address of all the startups in Scotland. Why would you? They haven't started yet. So that is one of the challenges. So it is about getting out there, talking with entrepreneur clubs, going to universities and talking about to their spin-off companies perhaps, and trying to get the message out there about the circular economy in a different way, that you probably wouldn't do if you were trying to sell resource efficiency. And that has been positive for us because we have had, obviously, a number of startups who've approached us out of nowhere in terms of what they're thinking of doing, and obviously other people, existing companies, trying to diversify as well into a new business model. But that is one of the challenges, I think, for an organisation like ours, which is a kind of government agency which has a tried and tested method of working with key sectors which already exist and have roots into those sectors through industry leaders and people like chambers of commerce and stuff like that. But actually, how do you access the real disruptors that we're all really talking about over the last couple of days, and we're all really excited about seeing happening in our own countries? So that is one of the challenges, and it is about being patient and putting the feelers out there to ensure that you're accessible to those people as well as the existing companies.
So I see, thank you very much, Ian. I see that does someone want to ask a question right now? Because the panel is also giving me signs that they want to come back or add to something, and I think Didier was the first, and then, of course, Jennifer. And we are still at the success stories, amazingly enough, not even at the challenges.
Yeah,
Didier,
so just to add on to what's been said, so I talked to a number of circular SMEs in the US just to kind of get their perspective of key success indicators, and they said things like strong brand or a strong team. They also said the ability to create immediate ROI, which is really important because for a lot of circular approaches, this takes time, right? So, and we've talked about that in terms of you might not see the benefit on this quarter or next quarter's balance sheet, for example, that, some of this might be seen next year or 5 years. But there's one company in the US called TerraCycle. I don't know if anyone in the room is familiar with them, but they focus on hard to recycle products. And their CEO told me that in just 15 years, they've gone from a just very small startup to a company that's in more than 20 countries and worth more than 20 million. So that's pretty impressive. Also, companies that have a compelling business model or technology. So has anyone heard of Ecovative? So that's another really great example where they look at alternatives to plastic packaging and styrene foam, looking at mushroom technology for packaging, for building materials, and other types of applications. And then there's also a company called Stuffster, which I don't know if any of you is familiar with as well. So they really focus on taking advantage of all of our unused stuff. So providing an app platform that allows you to trade it, to give it to a friend, to donate it to Goodwill. And so because of their really compelling model, they've been able to partner with major retailers like North Face and H&M and others, and they'll be able to catalog like 1 billion items through their apps. So it's those types of, I think, business models and ability to attract and deliver on immediate ROI, and having that strong brand and a strong team are key success factors. And the final thing that I'll mention is when I talk to these companies, they also said having organizations like the Chamber of Commerce Foundation or WBCSD or other groups that help to bring companies together to share, network, learn, and collaborate is really helpful if we're really going to mainstream the circular economy in the US and globally.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I had Didier who wanted to add something, and I will start, actually, this is a great opportunity for me to start invoking some time discipline on my panelists, which I have to do because we have limited time left. So if you would keep it to a minute-ish, your intervention. Thank you, Didier.
Well, there is one area where I think there is a great potential for development, which is improving the energy efficiency of buildings. If we want to unleash the market, we are to foresee for the 2030 objective to invest about 200 billion in Europe alone per year until 2030. You know that the building represents 40% of our CO2 emission, and therefore if we can succeed and treat this, it will be an enormous advantage for the European Union, not only in the European Union, but worldwide, because we'll have the norms, the techniques, the standards, etc., and we will lead by the demonstration. In order to do that, we need to improve the skills of the workers. we are actually training 1.5 million workers to be able to implement the renewable energies and all those sort of things. These 200 billion have to come from the private sector, from the banks, from the mortgage companies, etc., because it values their assets, because they have understood that in the years to come, if your asset is being targeted as an F norm, yes, then you have no future. So big area, big money, big numbers of jobs, and big profit possible. So just I wanted to mention that. And stop, sir.
No, you are. This is not what it was meant to be, because I also want to underline buildings. It's something that we didn't look at, but it is a huge opportunity. And I wanted to thank our panelists and, of course, Carmen as a keynote speaker for bringing to us some possibilities for success. And we tried to tease out where one could go. But now, what is hindering success? What are the challenges that business were facing? We heard already a number of things before, in particular in Jennifer's presentation. They were very focused in a number of cases. But maybe I would really like to start again with Funto, because you're in such a different environment in terms of support you can expect from the government, for example, which is, I would guess, not strong.
Yeah.
So what were the challenges you were facing, actually, and where could have some external support helped you on your way?
I think the biggest thing that if you spoke to any SME in Nigeria, and I believe on the African continent, which I think even bleeds through to any SME across the globe, would be access to financing. I think that has been the biggest challenge in terms of moving your company from start to, a place where it's viable. The statistics in Nigeria that I know, I think 90% of companies either fold up or kind of run out of steam by year 3 because of no financing. The other thing that I think is a challenge is lack of technical know-how. Just in terms of innovation, in terms of R&D, in terms of technology. One of the things that we're trying to do with my company is to actually go out and actually start. We've started, but it's not where we want it to be. We would actually use technology to have people sort in their homes, sort at source. And you can use an app, for example, to be able to say, oh, I have this waste, come collect. Well, to develop an app is probably going to cost you a lot of money that we don't have right now. So again, anybody in the crowd who wants to help us, I'm here. But it's things like that we need, right? Equipment, baling, shredder equipment, pelletizing equipment will take. On that note, though, I want to mention something in terms of, in the vein of everything we're talking about. As we mentioned circular economy, my only fear, again, coming from the African continent, is that I would hate to see a situation where, Africa becomes the dump, and I think we're starting to see some of it, where Africa becomes a dumping ground for a lot of, be it cars, be it garments, be it electronic waste. Because we're not where we should be to be able to know what to do with it. And I'm seeing more and more of a situation where, that is the go-to answer for a lot of things. And so again, I would just plead that a lot of, the stakeholders and the thought leaders in this room, that shouldn't be your default to just send anything you don't want to Africa, please, because it doesn't work. So, but in that same note, I would say, for any recycling company that has used equipment, equipment is one of the things that a lot of companies cannot, access themselves. So even if it's used equipment that still works, then we'll take it. And I think mentorship, know-how are some of the things that we'll also appreciate. So on that note, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a point here.
Here you go.
So I have to tell you that I said that we recycle, we resell. We only resell, and I think this is a duty for all the Western countries and companies that have more know-how and more knowledge about the circular economy. One of the policies we have, we only resell used equipment to countries that have very clear e-waste regulations, because we want to make sure that they deal with the equipment that we sell properly. We take this as our responsibility, and it is in our governments. But I would categorize 3 big challenges. One is awareness, is pure awareness. That's what I meant with the fact that people don't really understand the notion. And there's a lot of education that has to come from us. Second, governments can give an example. And the reason I give you two business cases that both involved municipalities and school and Ministry of Education, they can give an example as to how we should acquire, how we should use things, what shall we do with them at the end of lease. So I think it's very important. And third, the last but not the least, regulators have a huge play to roll here if they are to support us here, the three.
Thank you very much, Carmen.
There's a question.
Yes, a question. Great.
Yes, I had a question before. Does this work?
Yes.
Yeah. Michael Jaunby from ESAM consultancy firm in Sweden. How much, Carmen, do you take back in take-back systems? If I understood it correctly, you said 98% was refurbished or recycled, but how much comes back?
Almost 70 to 80%, depending country by country, of the leases comes back. So our main source of used equipment is from the equipment we sell. We put on a financing contract, we manage during the lifetime, then we take it back.
And the second question, could you elaborate a little bit on the purchase or the procurement process? Because what comes in goes out or goes around. So.
Yeah. I mean, so let's say you have to acquire mobile phones. You are an enterprise. You have 500 employees. They need a laptop. They need a desktop. They need a mobile phone. Everything. We arrange the sale. We work with partners that deliver the equipment. We put it on a financing contract, depending on the type of equipment, and at the end we manage it during the lifetime. At the end of the lifetime, which could be 1 year or 2 years, we keep the equipment new. We take it back ourselves. We take it back and we replace it with new. Like this, you always stay with the latest equipment, and you don't have any costs on. And for all of us today, whether you're in IT business or not, you can't live and be in the cloud without a mobile phone. So I think it's very important.
Thank you. I would like to use the last minute that I don't even have anymore, but I'd still use them, to ask maybe from each of our panelists for the two main points where support is needed and could overcome barriers. And I would like to start with Ian, not only to pick on you Funto all the time. So Ian, maybe the two main points that come to your mind where support for SMEs is needed because there are challenges in how the support could be provided.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's been said already about finance. I still think there is, although we have the ability to provide some finance in Scotland. Ideally, SMEs in Scotland would be attracting that finance to their usual routes. So that is something that probably hasn't developed as significantly as it should in terms of particularly high street banks. In terms of some of the smaller lenders, they're probably not as engaged in the circular economy, particularly around about leasing models, and they still have some difficulty understanding that. So I think that's something that really needs to develop, and I think that would create a bit of certainty for businesses that the products that they're accessing for finance are changing and evolving around the circular economy. I do think, I know it's a bit of a long-term or a longer-term thing. I do think procurement, I mentioned that, I do think public procurement has a role to play in creating that market, particularly, and also a bit of certainty that this is here to last. This is not a kind of circular economy. It was the 2017 thing. That public sector agencies are beginning to think differently about their services, or rather the performance economy. So I do think that would both provide the market for particularly emerging opportunities for businesses, but it would create a degree of certainty in the business community that they need to start seriously thinking about changing their business model and adapting to this new kind of economy.
Thank you, Ian. Jennifer.
So quickly, I would say one would be the need for partnerships to experiment and scale circular models. That's a huge challenge in terms of how it's being addressed. For example, we're partnering with organizations like Walmart Foundation, Target, Walgreens, Dow, Republic Services, and others to scale best practices at the city level for how we can recover, recycle, and reuse valuable materials that are currently going to the landfill. The other, I would say, would just be around education. So continuing to raise awareness among the broader business community about what the circular economy is, what it isn't, and how they can take the idea of a circular economy and translate that into business best practice. So that is done through, for example, we're organizing a circular economy seminar in partnership with Harvard this fall. We're also partnering with the City of New York to take businesses to New York to observe how they are and their local businesses are closing the loop on materials. And we're also organizing our third National Circular Economy Summit in partnership with Ellen MacArthur Foundation and WBCSD at the end of June. And there are postcards about the summit at the WBCSD booth. So providing those opportunities for sharing ideas, best practices, and education and awareness raising.
Thank you very much. Didier.
To be a bit different, since I agree with all what was said before, is to de-risk investment. We observe that most of the actors in Europe and elsewhere, they don't want to take the initial risk for investment. And I think it is the role of the governments then to observe this market failure and then to take the risk for the market that is not able or willing to take that risk, and then to expose to the finance sector. That would be one thing. Second thing, of course, education. If we want to be into the circular economy, people need to feel that it is part of their DNA from the youngest age.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Funto, please.
I think for us, it would be access to markets. I think with everything we're doing, we definitely want to be able to add more value along the chain that we're working in, and access to bigger markets will definitely get us there. The second thing I would, I think would be germane to this would also be for innovation and technology that I'm talking about. Hopefully, as people are thinking and creating things now, we're able to leverage that into the African continent and our unique circumstances as well, right? So anything that is not only scalable but is transferable in that sense would be great in terms of success.
Thank you so much. And now it is up to me to try to summarize this extremely diverse panel and their views, and I will try to do that very briefly in the remaining 5 minutes that we have together. Now, we have heard from all sides of the globe and very different viewpoints, actually, issues pertaining to SMEs and their role in circular economy. What is the most important thing? I think what came out as the most important thing is entrepreneurial spirit and the ability to see an opportunity. And I think that is a very crucial thing for every SMEs, also here in circular economy. The problem in circular economy might be that neither potential founders, entrepreneurs are necessarily seeing the opportunities because circular economy has not arrived in the minds, nor do their business partners see the benefits of buying from them, of buying into these models, nor do necessarily all levels of government, not only on the side of the commissions, but also national, regional, municipal, understand the benefits that they could have from ideas which seem to be small but are very powerful. So I think this is something where awareness is still lacking, and the more the awareness comes along, the better it will be for the growth. I think that's one of the things that I think I have heard. Another issue seemed to be the issue of finance. I mean, we have heard some enterprises simply run out of steam. They start up, they have a great idea, and then before they can earn a sufficient base to actually sustain and grow slowly, and they start losing more, having to pay back more, having holes in their income, and suddenly they're running out. This is, of course, as Didier said, it is very difficult for any bank to look at a small enterprise and see, can we actually support them? They're 1 year old, 2 year old. The difficulties are getting even bigger in developing countries with a much different risk-averse, often more risk-averse banking sector. And the concept of working on finance, in particular, the risk being taken over by the public hand, is certainly a concept which is worthwhile remembering. It seems to be in the background, but in the end, without money, your enterprise does not work. This is crucial, and I think it's a very important part of the outcome. Know-how is another issue which was mentioned repeatedly. The ability to see the business opportunity, but also to make the best out of it, even if there is a business, small businesses who often cannot just employ from the engineers and economists to come up with the best accounting models and with the best saving opportunities. They have to have enough know-how to navigate their way through their initial phases into growth and stability. That is technical know-how. I'm sure that is also business know-how. These are challenges that SMEs in general are facing, but particularly in the circular economy, where the field is, even to all of us here, still not fully explored. I would assume that even in the room there are very few people, if any, who are confident in saying that they understand circular economy and its opportunities in all its facets. I definitely can say I don't do that yet. So this is, I would say, one of the issues which also came out to me as critical. There were some additional points like business models which would be helpful, or opportunities for income. Public procurement, for example, was touched. Another issue here in this forum was actually focusing on public procurement as a means for governments to create a market for business to have a ground to stand on, possibly to focus on, possibly to grow out of and offer their service for others. There are also business models developed, like Carmen said, for example, out of, and I think this is most important, out of pure business perspective. Customers who are actually not caring that much how ecological it is. It's always welcome as an additional etiquette, resource ecologically, but this is not the point. The point is circular economy has the ability to, this is working with an additional resource which used to be a liability and thrown away, and suddenly it starts having value. And this value can actually lower the prices of the product and bring people, bring companies, new companies, SMEs into the market and make them competitive. And it can also improve the bottom line of the buyers, because the buyers will see it is cheaper, it is a better opportunity. It's by far good enough, whether you take the computers, whether you take the batteries that I mentioned in Casablanca manufactured, the product is as good as new, it's just a tad cheaper. And on top of that, green. And I think this business opportunity is something that SMEs will increasingly take, which is typical for circular economy, that you can generate win-win, you can generate more income, you can generate more jobs, and you can improve the environment. And so, having said that, and being 30 seconds above my time, I would like to thank both our keynote speaker, Carmen, as well as our 4 panelists for their time here. Please give them a hearty applause. And I thank all of you for your interest in the session. I hope you have enjoyed it, you take something with it, and have a great day here in Helsinki. Thank you very much.